Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 25 of Aussie Talks. This episode is being recorded about an hour and 15 minutes before the first ball is set to be bowled in the third Ashes Test match and what could be a deciding Test match for this Australian cricket team. So we're going to be doing a quick review of the second Test, getting some listeners' thoughts on why England are 2-0 down and what they can do to try and overcome this huge deficit that's only been overcome once in the history of Ashes cricket. So let's dive straight into the second Test review, in which Australia took away, once again, another scintillating Test win. So just a few short days ago, Australia took away another scintillating Test match win by 43 runs, and just like that, it's a 2-0 series lead, and they've got a clear opportunity in a couple of hours' time, or an hour's time, to win the Ashes for the first time in England since 2001. Not retain, to win it, and it'd be a huge opportunity and really cement this team up there as in the conversation as one of the better Australian sides. And it's been done by a team performance. It's not been one individual doing something out of this world. There's been individual brilliance through these two Test matches from Khawaja, from Smith, from Cummins, from Nathan Lyon, from Travis Head, from Alex Carey. You know, there's been individual brilliance, but it's the team aspect, that team mentality, the ability for there always to be in there with a chance, whether it be the number 1 or the number 11. It doesn't matter for Australia. Their team ability, or just team skill right now, is just obliterating England's team skill. You know, you look at England. I was thinking, with this 2-0 result, or 2-0 series lead Australia currently have, with the first Test, that could have easily been an England win if Stokes takes that unbelievable catch. And in some magical world, if Stokes was to continue to go on and make 200, 210, 215, whatever it would have been to get England over the line in this Test, all of a sudden it's 2-0 England, or it's 1-1. But I'm saying Stokes. It's one person. England require someone to do something which is just ridiculous. I don't think Australia require that. Pat Cummins, what he did in the first Test to get Australia over the line with Nathan Lyon, that was nuts. No one expected that. But he got help on the other end. It's right now, it's Stokes or bust. Stokes needs to do something insane for England for them to have any shot at winning. And that's why Australia held a 2-0 result, plain and simple. You can break it down, controversies, the pitch, bowling, selection, fielding, whatever it may be, philosophy, baseball versus normal Test cricket, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, it's come down to which side has had the better team performance as an 11. Right now, Australia are leaps and bounds above England. So doing a quick review on the Test match, and then we'll get to some listener thoughts that I've messaged a few mates prior to recording this podcast. But first, let's look at the review of the Test. So England won the toss, and you've heard in the media all week, Zach Crawley says, we're going to win by 150 runs. You know, we feel like we won the first Test. Well, mate, you didn't. Plain and simple. You can feel whatever the hell you want, but reality is reality. So they win the toss. It's a green top, and they send us in. So I think Australia probably would have done the same thing, but they came out with no intent. You know, Kevin Peterson absolutely cracked at him at tee. You know, Australia were like 190 for 2 or something like that, and were just cruising. They did better in the last session, England, to just sort of have a little bit of control or over the way Australia just went about it. But like, to make 416 in the first innings when you're sent into bat on what was a green top at the start is very well done. You know, Warner had one of his better innings of 66, and, you know, you may not notice a 66 looking back on this, but just to occupy the crease, keep the score ticking over, it's probably one of his better innings in England, and looked set for 100 before Josh Tongue got him with an absolute beauty. But the star of the first innings was Steve Smith. There's not much more I can say about the man. He's an hour away from playing his 100th Test match, and statistically he's the best since Bradman. He's still got plenty of Test matches left in him, and it's scary to think how good the stat sheet could be for his career when he wraps up in a couple of years down the track, and to think that he missed a year with obviously the ball tampering scandal is just ridiculous how good this guy is, and hopefully it continues, because to see him bat the way he does, and his cover drives, the way he plays the short ball, even his mannerisms, it's a sight to behold. And he just looks like, when he's on, he just looks like he's in control on every single shot he plays. There's no loose shots, there's no luck. It's just all class from this man. So that's Steve Smith in a nutshell. Travis Head had 77 in the first innings, but overall, to make 416 after being sent in, you take that any day. In the first innings for England, well, they seized back momentum, didn't they? And it almost looked like they were on top. They had an opportunity to either match Australia's score at worst, or even take a first innings lead. Crawley got 48, Duckett unlucky, got 98, nearly got 100 there, but they were 188 for one. Pope went out, that made a twofer. Since then, they only made 150 more runs. But they just had an opportunity there, and it just went like that. Like, we have a look at this right now. Starting on day 3, England were 4 for 270 odd, 4 for 278. Ben Stokes, second ball of the day, edges gets squared up, edges caught, and from then they lose 6 for 47. You just can't do that against this Australian side. It is plain and simple. The shots that they played just made absolutely no sense. It is not a real cricket team the way that they played in that first innings. It came back to bite them. Harry Brook made 50 playing smart cricket. Smart cricket shots. He worked it around. Yes, he had some good shots. 4 fours, going at a strike rate of 73, but he wasn't doing anything silly. Australia bowling way too short. They bowled way too short the whole test match. They got the win in the end, and I'll talk about that later, the bowling way too short. But they bowled short to him, and all he did was work it around, ones, twos, the occasional boundary. So what did you do once he gets 50? He steps aside and tries to do like a forehand smash, like you're playing tennis, and hits it to like a deep cover 3/4 of the way to the fence for an easy catch for Pat Cummins. It's just not a real cricket shot. And, I didn't watch... I wasn't really able to watch any of the test match because I was in Vietnam. That's why this podcast is coming out a few days after the test matches. I only got back today. But seeing all the stuff as I woke up in the morning and all the highlights and the commentary, I'm like, this is just ridiculous the way they play their cricket shots. And it's no wonder they're 2-0 down, because they need individual brilliance from what is silly cricket shots from 8 out of the 11 batsmen. And to lose 647, it's simply not good enough. And they went in with nearly a 100-run deficit when they look like, at worst, they would be matching Australia. So, looking at Australia's second innings, look, England bowled pretty well. The pitch started doing a few things. Nathan Lyon coming out will be the story of that innings. Him coming out to bat and putting on 15 runs with Pat Cummins, with Mitch Starc. It just shows the spirit of cricket. We're going to speak about the spirit of cricket with some controversies in a minute, but Nathan Lyon coming out, that was class. He's unfortunately done for the series with a calf's, basically just doing his calf. He's played 100 straight test matches, an unbelievable bowler, just shy of 500 test wickets, and he's not done in his test career just yet. But for him to come out was exemplary and a real role model for basically anyone who plays cricket and watches, for him to come out and to score some runs and to get a 15-run partnership, which in the end, a 43-run win, you need every run you can get. So England bowled well. They needed 371 to win. And then Australia turned it on. 4 for 40. They looked like they were going to do it easy. And then the first controversy, which I reckon will be forgotten about in a week, just because of what happened in the later hours on day 5. But Mitchell Starc took that catch. He took that catch. I'm sorry. He had control of it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I know the rules by sub-paragraph and dot point and everything, but that's a catch. He's caught it. He's taken 2 steps. He's gone to the ground, and he's obviously... The problem is that the ball touched the ground, and the argument is that it's used the ground to maintain control. You even had English pundits coming out and saying it was a catch. So that one there, look, as long as they're consistent with it, I don't have a huge issue, but I don't exactly agree with that one too much. And yes, it's Australian bias. And yes, I'll have Australian bias with the controversy with Carey. But I think there's a more logical thing behind it. The Stark one, that's a catch. He had control of it. If you land, if you tuck your elbows in there, with the way the turf was at Lords, you're doing it, you're hurting your elbow, you're hurting your shoulder. That's a catch, I'm sorry. Plain and simple. But that is not the number one controversy of the day's play. Johnny Bairstow on 10, didn't look good. Cameron Green bowls a bouncer. He bowled plenty of them. It was rubbish, but bowled a bouncer. End of the over. Carey throws it back, hits the stumps, Bairstow's out of his crease, out. Plain and simple. End of story. However, the English media and the English coach, the English players have just acted like sooks. It's the only way to put it. Dead set sook. Alex Carey did nothing wrong. He took the ball off Green's bouncer and threw it at the stumps straight away. It's not like he hesitated like Johnny Bairstow did in the past, 2014. Go watch the clip. It's quite funny considering all the stuff that's been said in the last couple of days. But he took control of the ball, threw it back straight away. It's hit the stumps. Johnny Bairstow was out of his crease, plain and simple, that's out. Anyone who says that the over was dead does not know, or the ball was dead, does not know cricket. Does not know cricket. The English Barmy Army put a thing up on their Twitter page saying every time, or the ball shall be declared dead when the keeper has his gloves on it. So using that theory, no player will ever be stumped. So clearly, just I don't know who's running the Barmy Army's Twitter page. Just get your facts right, champ. But that's out. He stepped out of his crease. It's dopey. It's silly. It's just not what you see in professional cricket. It's what you see in under 12s, under 14s. It's club cricket standard, and it would have happened in club cricket. The recently gone Australian club cricket summer, that would have happened. Keepers do that every weekend to try and get a run out or a stumping or whatever it may be. You stay in your crease, Bairstow. Everyone goes, it's a dog act. It's a dog act. Ben Stokes hadn't even got to the past the non-strikers crease. So there's no argument that Ben Stokes had started walking towards Bairstow for the end of the over. Bairstow, you've got to stay in your crease. It's out. Plain and simple. I don't think anyone who has an argument that it's not out doesn't know the laws of cricket, and it clearly hasn't played and doesn't understand a thing. Where there's a fraction of an argument, and I don't agree with this, is that whether or not Australia should have withdrawn their appeal. There's been plenty of commentary from the likes of Piers Morgan. Now, I don't know what Piers Morgan knows about cricket, that being said, and just, members of the MCC saying it's un-Australian. Jeffrey Boycott, I think, is one of them. Rishi Sunak even cracked at the UK Prime Minister. Again, know your place, but oh well. Saying that, same old Australians, it's the worst thing since the underarm ball, it's the worst thing since Sandpaper Gate, all this sort of stuff, same old Aussies, same old cheats. It's out is out. Out is out. He's out of his crease. How is it the Australians' fault that Johnny Bairstow's walked out of his crease in a dopey style? How? How is it? Please tell me. Genuinely. Anyone who says to withdraw the appeal doesn't understand the laws of cricket. And I understand that if it probably happened the other way, we'd probably feel, you know what, it's not great. Spirit of the game, all this sort of stuff. We'd probably be saying the same thing. So that's the beauty of the Ashes cricket when it's nation versus nation. If the shoe was on the other foot, we'd probably say the same thing. But anyone who has the argument about the spirit of the game, go read the enshrined spirit of the game code of conduct in the MCC, saying that you need to respect the game, respect your opponents, and respect the umpire's decision. Those are the 3 points. You can go look it up. It's right there in the MCC to look for you. But that was the main controversies there. Bairstow, you're out. Keep walking, champ. Now, Ben Stokes. That controversy woke him up. I have said he is arguably the best big game cricket player potentially ever. 2019 World Cup final, 2022 World Cup final, 2019 Headingley. What he did was incredible. And what he did here, if he had have got England over the line, it would have been the greatest ever knock in the history of Test cricket. He made 150 odd off about 214 balls, and I reckon he scored 80, 90 of those runs off about 50 balls. He just went the whack, and it was good. It was as a fan of the game, it was exciting. I was listening to it on SEN New Zealand. That was the only thing that wasn't blocked in Vietnam to listen to the cricket. And I'm listening to it, and it's Ben Stokes for 6. Oh, he's hit 9 sixes, and I'm going, he's going to do it again. He's going to make 200. He's going to make 210, and he's going to do it again and break Australian hearts and put England back into the series. But he didn't. He unfortunately was not able to do something that would have been out of this world. He did something extraordinary, but he didn't do something out of this world because no one else went with him. Ben Duckett was the only other person to make a score, and it goes back to what I said at the start of this segment. I know it's been a long segment, so if you're still here, thank you very much. But the team performance of Australia is why they're 2-0 up. England require brilliance from certain individuals like Stokes and Root. They just don't have the team effort and the team basis, and that's where Bazball has fallen over. So that's my sort of review on the second test, not touching on what the England coach has said. There's plenty of stuff out there that you can go have a watch for yourself. I don't need to elaborate on that. No one wants a beer with him anyway. But let's get into your thoughts on why England are really 2-0 down.
Sliced away, Carey and Carey Hazelwood combine to end a quite magnificent innings from Ben Stokes.
So a couple of hours ago, I sent a few messages out to some of my mates to get their thoughts on why they think this England side, which is meant to change cricket, this Bazball, this philosophy, this idea, and why the fact they are 2-0 down in the series. So let's get into some of the listeners' thoughts. So starting us off is Adam, who says, because they refuse to change their philosophy and that doesn't work against sound teams. And I completely agree with that. You have a look at who England have beaten with this Bazball team. An average New Zealand side where New Zealand set big totals for England and England just battered it out against subpar attacks. South Africa, another one, subpar. We saw what they did in Australia. What were they going to do in England conditions? Pakistan, again, on roads. They did it in a one-off test against India, and, it didn't work in New Zealand. It hasn't worked on similar conditions that Australia are used to with the New Zealand. They lost by 1 run playing that style of cricket. I know it's a bit stiff to have a go over a 1-run loss, but the philosophy just hasn't worked. And, Australia are the best team in the world in a neutral condition. If, it plain and simple right now, and it has not worked against this 11 who clearly have built their mental side since the India series. So refusing to change his Bazball philosophy, whether it be from the top order batsman to the middle order batsman, even to the lower batsman. When Ben Stokes went out, Ollie Robinson, who has a first class 100, mind you, was probably the last sound bat to maybe give England just a little bit more of a sniff. He got out for 1 playing some rubbish Bazball shot because of this philosophy against sound bowling. So spot on there from Adam. Jaden has said in very short and sweet, too arrogant and too stubborn. 100% agree. The talk in between the first and the second test match, it acted like they won. Right now, there's a 0 on the scoreline and it's in their win column. So they've got absolutely nothing that they can go back on. And unfortunately, they think they do. Looking at what Jacob has said, they haven't been able to win the big moments across both tests, and I completely agree. They have always found a way in England just to have something go their way, whether it's someone do something out of this world or Australia just have a collapse or umpiring decisions or the weather or just something always seems to go their way. Those big moments are an incredible catch. So far, it hasn't happened, and there's a contributing factor why they're 2-0 down. Jackson has said that their bowling attack is simply not performing. Broad and Anderson are getting too old. Don't even get him started on Moeen Ali. I completely agree on that, and don't know how he's been picked for the test match that's about to start in 45 minutes. Ollie Robinson bowls pies. Tongue is an okay bowler. While you compare that to the bowling attack of Australia, it's just leaps and bounds better, and he's spot on here. Jackson, Ollie Robinson bowling pies. If you want to have a good laugh, go on YouTube and look at what Billy Brownless said about Ollie Robinson. Their bowling hasn't been good enough. Australia have always been able to have runs on the board, whether it be 417 in the first innings on a green top, whether it be extending their lead out for a second innings or whether it be chasing down the target of 280 odd in the fourth innings in the first test. They just haven't been able to take wickets, plain and simple. And the bowling attack, yes, they're without Jofra Archer, which does hurt, but the fact is he hasn't been in the side for a long time because of his injuries. So, Mark Wood's playing this test match, Chris Wokes, maybe that'll be a change for him, but maybe Mark Wood's the only one that Australia might fear a little bit because of his pace, but their bowling attack just simply isn't there, and they don't have a spinner as well. Moeen Ali can't bowl, plain and simple. Nicholas has said that it's just been the way they've handled the game. When the English had a handle on the game, they were on the throats of Australia. They always just seemed to let Australia back into the game, and that's right. In the first test, I completely agree. They were always on top. I said at the time they were on top for 4.5 days, but they never put Australia away. And it's probably flipped even in the second test match. Australia always on top, and even when England threatened, it was the rash shots. Like I said, losing 6 for 47 on the start of day 3, they lacked that intent, that ruthlessness to stay at the crease and go, you know what, nothing's getting past me. I'm not going to play a bad shot like I'm a Harry Brook or something like that. So he's spot on there, exactly. Mickey Winslow has said they're cocky and shit. So yeah, spot on there from Mick. Callan Fazio, it says, when it comes down to it, they don't care enough about winning. They need to put aside their egos and do what it takes to finish the job. Pretty brutal there from Cal, but again, spot on. All this talk, all this, how good are we? You've got 0 wins, mate. Against Australia, you've won 2 tests since 2017 against Australia. 2. And that was the 2019 Ashes series. You've got nothing over us. Nothing. And I know that this could come back to bite me. I could post this podcast and Australia are sent in and we're 4 for 20, and I've jinxed the whole series. But I just can't see it happening. They're so invested in this philosophy of Bazball and how good are we. You've done nothing, lads. You've won nothing. No Ashes. Don't contend for the World Test Championship. You haven't got a hope. So put your egos away and start playing proper cricket shots, and maybe it'll go that way. And Dex has been on this podcast quite a bit, whether it be for St Kilda, whether it be for cracking it at Australia. Well, he's cracked it at England and just basically said they're soft, which, yeah, again, brutal, soft. They're not ruthlessness. I think everyone there who I've mentioned is got the same premise. They lack the ruthlessness. They refuse to go away from the philosophy, even when it continues to fail, and no one's been able to really put their head down and go, you know what, I'm going to give it to Australia. I'm going to be ruthless, and I'm going to win this test match, or try to win this test match for my team outside of Ben Stokes. No one else has done that. That's why they're tuning it down. Thank you to everyone who's tuned into this very lengthy review of the second test. Third test gets underway in about 40 minutes time, and let's hope for all Aussies' sake that we can go 3-0 up, and well, my 3-1 prediction, I might have to change that to 5-0, but we shall see what happens. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time here on Aussie Talks.
The short ball, grab and loose back and full space, they pass square leg. So this is cricket.